Harry's Wife, Part 104.73. Harry to ditch Netflix. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I turn to an article by Katie Harris, which has appeared in the Express newspaper. As always, I leave it up to you to determine the veracity of the material. I provide you with the analysis of what this all means vis-à-vis the issue of narcissism. Harry handed pre-written resignation letter to tell Netflix he is quitting £85 million deal. Prince Harry has been urged to abandon his Netflix deal by a commentator who penned him a suggested resignation letter. Journalist Dan Wooten blasted the portrayal of members of the royal family in the latest series of The Crown and called on the Duke of Sussex to walk away from his and Harry's wife's agreement, said to be worth £85 million, with the streaming giant. Mr. Wooten branded the fifth season an all-out assault on the credibility, reputation, heart and soul of the monarchy, including the late Queen, King Charles, and Princess Diana. No, Diana, Princess of Wales. And the royal commentator wrote an imagined resignation letter in his Mail Online column, which he says Harry should send to Netflix's CEO, Ted Sarandos. Mr. Wooten's letter claims the royal drama manipulates the dark final days of Diana. The royal commentator hits out at Netflix for showing the princess as trying to bring down the monarchy. Mr. Wooten also blasts the callous portrayal of King Charles and says they have got the late Queen all wrong. The journalist ends his imagined letter by asking for the Netflix deal to be terminated with immediate effect, adding that the Crown is causing damage to the monarchy. Moving across to his own article in the Daily Mail, Wooten writes, after weeks of non-stop hype and worrying leaks about what to expect from its storylines, I knew The Crown was going to be bad, but I had no idea it would be this bad. As you'll know, if you binge the royal drama at the weekend like me, the fifth series is an all-out assault on the credibility, reputation, heart and soul of our beloved recently departed Queen Elizabeth II, her husband Prince Philip, the new monarch King Charles and his late ex-wife Princess Diana, no, Diana, Princess of Wales. While all four, like most human beings, had their failings, Peter Morgan has set out on an all-out character assassination in his retelling of the Windsor's trials and tribulations during the troubled 1990s era. I certainly hate to think that this dark turn in the highly influential hit show's presentation of our royal family has anything to do with the streaming service signing Prince Harry as its most famous staff member, adorned with a multi-million-pound deal. The downright malicious presentation of the late Queen as cold, unloving and cruel is in stark contrast to the compassionate and pragmatic leader described by those who worked closely with her at the time. It rankles me that Hollywood is prepared to damage the memory of our greatest ever monarch so soon after her devastating passing, not to mention the portrayal of her devoted husband Philip as an uncaring philanderer. So surely their own grandson, well known for his public brawls with media organisations who sully the reputation of his loved ones, must be catatonic with rage, especially in regards to the tawdry and factually inaccurate treatment of Diana, who is wrongly portrayed as a bad mum on a solo mission to bring down the monarchy. If The Crown was produced by another media organisation, Harry would be firing out Archwell press statements, alerting his trigger-happy lawyers at Shillings, and giving heart-rending interviews with Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King about how the horrible media is out to destroy his life. Given he's on the payroll, what do we have instead? A telling and deeply uncomfortable silence. But if Prince Harry has the requisite moral fibre and decency, he must immediately prove he's not a Hollywood hypocrite and quit Netflix. Here's the uncompromising resignation letter, imagined by me, that he should send to its chief executive, Ted Sarandos. Dear Ted and the management of Netflix, for many years I have made clear that a priority for me is to ensure the memory of my mother is protected and that her tragic life and death is not commoditized by the media for commercial gain. That's too many long words there to begin with, but anyway. It is therefore ethically impossible that I continue working for your company after the broadcast of the fifth series of The Crown, which manipulates the dark final days of the late Princess Diana in order for you to gain subscriptions. The new episodes imagine private conversations between me, someone who works for your company, and my mother that, quite simply, are deeply hurtful, suggesting that as a 7-year-old, I took her side in what would become a traumatic divorce from my father. But that's just the beginning of the manipulation and lies, which include the recreation of private telephone conversations between William and my mother, suggesting that he was not supportive of her plight while a student at Eton. On the contrary, the relationship between my brother and our mother was as intertwined and as close as one could be. We both only ever wanted her to be protected and happy. Invented private counselling sessions attended by my mother are broadcast, as is the by now discredited Panorama interview, procured by illicit means by Martin Bashir for the BBC, smashing to pieces many years of work by my brother for its contents to be consigned to history, given the clearly duplicitous and dodgy circumstances in which the interview took place. Most hurtfully, my mother is shown trying to bring down the monarchy, another distortion of the record. While she was deeply upset with my father, she always remained supportive of the Crown and Her late Majesty, referring to her as my mamma. My late mother and father's chance meeting at Kensington Palace following their divorce was cordial and mature, but the Crown turns it into another nasty, slanging match. Indeed, your treatment of my father, King Charles, is even more callous. The former Prime Minister John Major has recently confirmed that your concocted storyline claiming he actively lobbied for his mother to abdicate is nothing more than malicious nonsense. Meanwhile, the late Queen is shown hectoring and making demands of Prime Minister Major, drifting apart from my grandfather, and acting in a cold manner towards her closest relatives. You've got her wrong, and it's unconscionable to me you could broadcast this tripe so soon after the entire world came together to mark her death. This weekend I learned with the rest of the world that my late grandfather Prince Philip was so angry about his false portrayal surrounding the death of his older sister in an earlier series that he consulted his lawyers at Farrer & Co. It is imperative for me to honour his memory. What would be especially troubling to me is if you intend to use the publicity and hype generated by the most recent series of The Crown to launch my own reality series made with my wife, the Duchess of Sussex. I understand The Crown is a drama, but that is not how it is viewed by tens of millions of young people around the world who take its content as sacrosanct. Especially given you continue to refuse overwhelming demands, including from the British government and Dame Judi Dench, to run a disclaimer at the start of each episode explaining that the series is fictitious and only loosely based on real events. The Crown is now causing damage to my family and the monarchy itself. Therefore, I ask that my Netflix contract be terminated with immediate effect and that you respectfully agree not to broadcast my reality series before the coronation of my father, King Charles. He is grieving his mother and deserves this time to start his reign without additional stress. I must put the good of my father, my family, our beloved country, and the monarchy ahead of my personal ambitions. Kind regards, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. That is the imagined letter that Mr. Wooten has penned on his behalf. Now, he makes a valid point that Harry ought to be incandescent with rage about the portrayal. But there are two issues here. First is, there's a lot of money, and he needs it. And therefore, if he was to forgo the contract with Netflix as a point of principle, how would he replace that money? He also knows that one of the most important aspects of the reason that his wife is with him, and this will have become increasingly clear to him, is her love of money, which of course is a residual benefit. He knows that if he were to take such a stance, that the repercussions would be serious. His wife would not like it at all because of the loss of money, and he is at a loss as to how he would replace that sum. If he had a way of making that money, then perhaps he would shift. And of course, many of you may think, well, it should be about the principle and not the money. But remember, this is an individual who's in a sustained devaluation. There's undoubtedly been arguments about money. He's undoubtedly found himself put under pressure by his wife with regard to where money's going to come from, him pulling his weight for Team Sussex, etc. And if he was to take such a step as to jeopardise future payments as a consequence of saying, pull the series, then that would amount to a huge threat to control for Harry's wife, with the repercussions indeed. There could be some form of legal battle, whereby she says, proceed, and I want the money. Forget him. Okay, give me my share and not his. If it works that way, if it is joint, if it can be severed in that way. The fact is that Harry will be concerned about what is shown in The Crown. And he has banged on repeatedly about the memory of his mother. But the problem is, the amount of money that he's in hock to, and stands to gain following the Netflix docu-series, affects his own emotional empathy. As Robert Bolt wrote in A Man for All Seasons, every man has his price, and Harry does. And his price is the many millions that Netflix have thrown at him, which is causing him to indeed be a hypocrite, and not to speak out against this programme, or even to pull his own series from it, in protest at the portrayal of his family. He sold his family down the river because of the need for money, which has affected his own emotional empathy, and, of course, the potential reaction of his wife, who would not let him make such a stand. Indeed, she would continue to egg him on to say, they deserve this. It might not be entirely accurate, but look at all of the lies they've told about us, Harry. Look how they've portrayed us. Let them have some of their own medicine. And she will have been encouraging him to not speak out because they need the money, and also to essentially jab the royal family in the eye. What are the comments below the line? Do they see this similar problem for Prince Harry, or perhaps do they just regard him as an odious individual in his own right? Gothwoman52 states, never in a month of Sundays. That would take an honourable man. Chris1776 responds, Mr. Markle can't afford it, and even if he could, he wouldn't. French1890, that is not going to happen. Mid-Atlantic, Harry will not resign. WPS, Harry's wife won't let him. She loves the money too much. Mia Gainiel, his wife won't allow him to do it. Maola, 2 reasons he won't resign. He can't financially. 2, Harry's wife won't let him, for her vengeance is her modus operandi. Constantly moderated, no he won't. He needs the money. Coat, of course he won't. Not until his wife tells him to. Cut the cord. Mr. and Mrs. Harry's wife, give it 2 thumbs up. Henry, Wooten's letter is beautifully composed and so poignant. Unfortunately, Harry has sold himself out to the highest bidder, Netflix, in exchange for financial gain at the expense of his own family. His continued endorsement of the Netflix brand just confirms the fact that he has no scruples or concern for honouring the memories of his own mother or the late Queen and the entire royal family. What else is stated? Mimi Q, love you. How else is Harry going to pay the bills if he doesn't have the money from Netflix and all those other deals that he signed up to? Anthony Blanche 2.0, he can't keep up with his wife's spending, you mean? Vio Vio, where's he going to get big money contracts if he quits Netflix? It's not like Netflix is the only one tarnishing the royal family's reputation. He has behaved worse than Netflix. Much muttering, morality does not pay the bills. Espimio, nope, because money, and he sold his soul. Woodgnome, Harry doesn't make decisions. You need to ask his teacher. MTN Cat 55 adds, his handler, you mean. And therefore, people do recognise that he's not going to do this because of the necessity of money, and furthermore, of course, that it simply won't sit with his wife, which once again shows the level of hold that the narcissist has over him, and that he is a victim, that his own principles and supposed support for his family go out of the window because of the diminution of his emotional empathy occasioned by the necessity of money, driven, of course, by the behaviour of the narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.